Hey guys, it's Mark here from the ETF Tracker Show, and this is episode 10 of our interviews with experts, and we've got a special one on today. We have Jessica Leung, who works for BetaShares, and she's a portfolio manager there, taking care of some awesome ETFs that you may have already heard of, such as ETHI and FAIR, but that's her job by day. By night, or other parts during the day, she is also a budding influencer on the financial social media community, a Finfluencer of sorts. So she has a channel called TheLeungWay. We're going to learn more about her day job. We're going to learn more about TheLeungWay and the reasons why she got started. It is all about helping investors. We love that because that's what we're trying to do here as well. So please do like, share, and subscribe to see all of this and more. We'll see you in the show. And welcome back, everyone. So we are here with Jess Leung from TheLeungWay. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a Saturday for all of those playing at home. So usually we've done these interviews midweek, but we make a special case for someone special like you, Jess.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Sorry for making you work on your weekends.
No, it's fine. The entrepreneurial life, work is kind of like a non-stop thing. You work when you find the time to do it. And this is, I can't remember which episode number this is going to be because we pre-record all of them, but I've learned so much from all of the interviews so far, and I'm sure I will from yourself. So I'm looking forward to this. We will start off, as we do with every guest, with the first question, which is the origin story in, the superhero kind of movie. So how did you get started working in finance, and what got you interested in ETFs?
Yeah, so I've been interested in finance and markets practically all my life. The first memory of finance I have actually goes back all the way to primary school. I think I was in year 5.
Wow.
And the teacher gave us all a photocopy of, back in the day in the newspaper, they actually printed out the page of all the stocks and the last price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you
I remember seeing that, yeah.
Yeah, so then she gave each of one like a photocopy of that sheet, and I think the amount she gave us was, I think, $10,000. And she's like, okay, you have $10,000, how would you invest your money? So I just thought that was the coolest and funnest exercise today, and that's actually my first memory that I have of trying to invest in stocks.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and then
do you remember what you bought?
Yeah. So this is not financial advice because this was from a 10-year-old me. Yep. But I bought QBE because I think my dad was working at QBE at the time. And then I bought ANZ because that was a bank that my parents used to bank with. Okay. And then I think probably some other random name, but I just remember QBE and ANZ.
Oh, that's amazing. It sounds like you're a little portfolio manager already. How old were you? What grade of primary school were you in?
I think it was year 5 from my memory, so probably 8 or 9 years old.
I remember Ninja Turtles in primary school, so that's very cool. And what, from there, what happened?
Yeah, so then fast forward to uni. So in uni, I studied applied finance and actuarial studies, but then the applied finance side always appealed to me a lot more. And that was when I kind of knew, or I knew all of a sudden that I wanted to be on finance and working finance, and preferably on the investment side and not really working on the insurance side as an actuary. And then I've been in asset management ever since I graduated uni. So my first job out of uni at Macquarie was a operational role for structured products. And then I moved on to investment risk and then finally front office in equities. And then now I'm here in BetaShares.
Brilliant. And how long have you been at BetaShares?
I think just over, I joined during the pandemic last year, so a bit over a year now, actually.
Oh, good timing for any moves like that. So just at BetaShares, so we know you as a PM over at BetaShares. Can you tell us a bit more about your role and what you're doing at BetaShares?
Sure. So at BetaShares, I'm a part team of 7 on the PM team. So some of us focus on the fixed income funds, some of us focus on the equities one. I myself focus on equities and ESG, and some of the funds that I look after include ETHI, FAIR, CLDD and RBTZ, as well as most of our diversified funds. But also another role or a big part of our role as a PM is just product development. So creating and building new products to bring to the market for our investors.
Wow, brilliant. ETHI is definitely one of my favorites, and we've been doing at ETF Tracker a couple of analysis videos because, as you know, we bring a lot of data together out there, and including the holdings. And BetaShares, you guys, you gave me a lot of work to do. You've got 60 plus ETFs, so it takes
I think
a
the
little bit
latest
of
count
time.
is 65 or 66.
Yeah,
Something like that.
It's so good, but yeah, there's a lot of work to pull in your ETFs, but I set that as my first challenge when I was looking at the ETF holdings and making it easier for people to analyze. But yeah, it was a big mountain, and you guys are doing some amazing stuff there. But ESG is really, really interesting, and it's been kind of like this flavor of the month. What are your thoughts? I mean, not flavor, sorry. It's been a flavor of the month for some people, but then it's turned into something actually serious. And we saw a lot of money going into it in 2020, after 2019. And whether it's the pandemic that drove it or it's people actually realizing we need to take care of our planet, so we saw a lot of it in the data. But what are your thoughts on ESG as a whole, with more funds listing? And, what about the ones that are being relabeled? They weren't ESG and now they're being relabeled ESG. So thoughts on the whole and, these other little nuances around ESG. What do you think?
Yeah, so ESG investing is very personal to me, or I hold it very close to my heart. I practically volunteered myself to look after the ESG funds in my interview when I said that my interest lies in ESG.
Okay.
And it's something that I personally like to invest in. And I think lots of investors also share the same sentiment as me. Like you said, this space has grown a lot. As of now, I think we're over $30 billion in sustainable assets just in Australia. And even the rate at which it's growing is increasing a lot as well. But you can still say that this space is still in its early stages.
Yeah.
It's going through a lot of changes. And like you said, there's a lot more ESG funds listing and being relabeled. But with that, then you often hear the term greenwashing being referred to more and more as well. So for those out there, greenwashing is when a fund markets himself as being more green or ethical than it really is. And I think until the market has consistent reporting standards on definitions on what is considered ethical and how to invest sustainably, the onus really lies on investors to try to figure that out themselves. And that can be really confusing. So my tip for investors there is make sure you look under the bonnet, try to really look and understand the holdings and make sure that what you're holding is what you're expecting from the fund.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's what we say, under the bonnet, under the hood. We hear others talk about this too. The guys at Equity Mates, even Rask Australia, they all talk about looking under the hood. And where do you see, I mean, like we try to do some stuff. We don't have all the data points, but we do a little bit with ETF Tracker. But where, apart from that, so not to try to plug what I'm doing here too much, but apart from that, where do you suggest for investors to do that, looking under the hood?
Yeah, so then I guess as investors or ESG considerations slowly become the norm and will be the norm, it's not good enough from a fund provider perspective just to say, oh, my fund is ESG, or to practically put out the same or identical fund after they're slapped on ESG in the name and say, oh, it's ethical because it's past the screens,
Yeah.
And I think investors are getting better at looking and understand the holdings themselves. But I think what's important and what should be focused on is how, or ESG integration. So how the fund managers actually use data and research to inform their investment decisions and to help them manage the ESG risk within the portfolio. And that's kind of what we've done in our funds such as ETHI and FAIR. So we've kind of included it in the portfolio construction process. And then also the Responsible Investment Committee has engagement with the companies where they deem necessary to make sure we really provide investors with a true to label portfolio.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it's not just, some people might think that it's just running a few screens and then that's it. But no, you've actually got an RIC, a responsible investment. What's the full term for it? Responsible Investment
Committee.
There you go. Yeah. So for those playing at home, RIC, we'll put that in the show notes. But you've got that. You've got a group there that is talking to companies about all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good to note. And ETHI and FAIR, just to go into that a little bit more, what's the difference between those? They're two of your flagship kind of ethical funds. What does one cover and the other?
So ETHI will give you exposure to a diversified portfolio of international, sustainable names that we classify as climate leaders. So that's when it's a top 1/3 of performers in terms of carbon efficiency in the industry itself, or they're engaged in activities that, for example, scope 4 emissions, they help reduce carbon use by other industries. So first it's the climate leaders, and then they get rigorously screened for things such as fossil fuel, human labour rights, and gender diversity. And then from there, we pick the largest 200 names by market cap.
Wow.
And FAIR is our domestic version, but it's not exactly a carbon leaders, it's just a sustainable leaders version. So they also have the same set of really comprehensive screens. And then from there, we pick out the sustainable leaders within each of the industry groups to include in the portfolio.
Okay, that's really brilliant. And for those that might have just heard the name on the tin and maybe haven't looked at the holdings, and maybe haven't tried to understand the definition of what the strategy is for these, I think all of this kind of stuff is helpful. But we definitely recommend that they look at the page, the fund page that you guys have for all 65 that they're interested in. You mentioned before that one part of your role as well is looking into the types of products that can come out, and we see a lot of innovation in the ETF world. But when you do look for those new types of products that you can bring, do you look overseas? Where do you look at for innovation to bring to investors here?
Yeah, so definitely we're very lucky in Australia in the sense that we essentially have a crystal ball to kind of guide us into the future in terms of ETFs. So I'm referring to international markets, and especially the US. So we can kind of see the growth trends, what has done well, what investors like, and just in general, I guess, in the product development process, some questions that we ask, or that's where we kind of draw our inspiration from, is what's missing in our product suite, what do our investors want to invest in, and what are some kind of the future upcoming thematics that we want to capture and give to them. But going back to your point in terms of international, so not only do we look at the ETF market internationally, but we also just look at specific markets overseas and try to provide certain exposures or thematics to our investors as well. So for example, our NASDAQ 100 fund, as well as our Asian Tigers Technology Fund.
Okay, well, that's really useful to hear. I just had to turn my mic off for a second as an ambulance went past. But I think it's really important that investors know that, you guys are actively looking for those next things that you can bring to the market here, because for a lot of people, it's like ETFs just all of a sudden came up on their radar, and maybe they had preconceived notions that these are just boring index kind of funds, but there's actually more to it. There's a lot of innovation that is happening, a lot of thematics that are new that we're seeing, and you guys are definitely bringing up quite a few interesting ones. So we'll keep an eye out for that, that's for sure. So the next question is kind of personal, actually, because unlike some of the other people that we've, not everyone, I'm sure others have, but when you're in, this space, like I've always seen it as like there's the Finfluencer, Finstagram, the social influencer in finance community, and then there's the professional kind of working community. And you kind of toe the line on both. You've got a bit of a growing Instagram following. We follow you here at ETF Tracker, but can you tell us a little bit more about that? What led you to doing it, and how is it going so far?
Yeah, sure, of course. But before we get started, I was listening to your episode that you did with Angel, and then you guys were talking about the topic of influencers and how there were good and bad ones. So then my question back to you is, am I considered a good or bad influencer?
On a scale of bad to good, you're right up here. And, we've got good reasons for that, because you give a lot of great information from a reliable source. And I think for us, it's not just ETFs look under the hood for the holdings and the data, but it's also the people that you listen to and talk to. Do they have that pedigree, or is it just like, one of my favorite things to do sometimes to just unwind has been to watch these YouTube videos that are finding scammers online and pulling them apart, whether it's a multi-level marketing scam that is going on. Not all MLM necessarily is bad, but whether it's that or the 12-year-old saying that they're a millionaire and looking at all his cars and stuff, and it's definitely a scam, but it gets more sophisticated, especially with investing, and people don't know what they don't know. So I find what you're doing quite important in this space.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, like going back of what you're saying, so what kind of made me start was actually the rise of the influencers themselves. So I would
Mm,
see them on my personal social media and then just seeing them give quote unquote advice, and just spreading kind of the wrong message. Most of them, as you said, they don't come from a finance background. And to put it bluntly, I would say that they've just been lucky. They started
mm,
investing during the pandemic and then kind of rode the wave of performance or got into certain crypto early.
yeah.
And all they talk about, or how should I say this? They don't really know the concept of risk. It's a foreign
Mm,
concept to them. They've only understood returns, and all they talk about is returns, but no one in the influence world is really understanding or talking about risk.
yeah,
And I think that it's so important because when you're investing, it's just as much about managing your risk, if not more important than managing your money.
absolutely. And
Um,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, and then just following from my point, like, yeah, also at that point, it just didn't look like the regulators were going to do anything about it, and
Mm,
then just kind of let them run wild, I suppose. So then I decided if you can't really beat them, then why not I be a voice that's reliable and responsible in this space? So that's kind of the reason why I started my social media on Instagram and TikTok as well. So I downloaded TikTok just for this
oh,
reason.
okay, nice. Sorry, how
Yeah,
long ago did you say you downloaded TikTok?
probably 6 months ago.
Okay, how's it going on that one?
It's going well, I would say. I'm not up there in terms of following, but I have a couple thousand followers for now. So I think that's still a couple more thousand more than what I expected originally. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I
Um
don't get the whole TikTok one. Like, I mean, I'm on there and I've tried it, but I don't understand all the technology. I'm finally at that age where some sort of technology is kind of befuddling me. And it's just, yeah, I'm sure I could just put more time into it and stuff. But yeah, that's okay. Sorry. And you were saying what else was there to do with the, the Instagram and TikTok thing?
yeah, so that's the reason why I decided to start it. And my main aim is just to raise awareness and to teach about financial literacy in a simple to understand manner. And like you were saying before, not all influencers are bad. There are good ones, and
Mm,
there are a lot of people out there which are simply sharing the journey, and I'm all for that as well. But another
absolutely.
reason,
Yeah.
yeah, another reason as to why I started was just a lot of our products or BetaShares products will get brought up all the time,
Hmm.
and then they'll be quoted incorrectly, or just that the information that was given about
Oh,
them was just wrong.
okay.
Um, yeah, so then I thought to myself, who else better to be in this space than the person that's actually managing the ETFs themselves, so that people can put a face to the name and kind of break the stigma or the misconception that people have around portfolio managers and just in general people that work in finance, and especially being female and of Asian descent. I think it's really important to have representation in this space.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I'm all for the minorities as well because I am one. Growing up in Western Sydney and all that kind of stuff. Never did I expect to kind of work in finance and technology and all this kind of stuff that we're doing. So that's fantastic. And onwards and upwards, I say. Like, if
Thank you.
people aren't following you, they need to because you've got your daily I mean, apart from the yoga stuff that you're doing, there's also you've got some daily notes there. So it's been quite helpful, I'm sure, for many people that follow to see what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and I didn't think that my daily dabbles would take off or be as popular as it would. No, it's just part of my everyday job or part of my routine just to keep up with the markets and the overnight news. So then one day I just thought, why don't I just share the headlines that I'm reading? And people have responded really well to that.
No, that's brilliant, and it's very inspiring, and I can certainly learn from what it is that you're doing and stuff. So we will take a lot of that on board. I mean, we started this newsletter and stuff just because there was stuff that I would read each week, but it was just kept to myself. So why not share this kind of stuff and see if others can get value from it? And so far, it's going okay. So we'll see how we go. So the next question, I guess, is for those that are interested in, and obviously we can't, this is not financial advice, caveats all around here, but do you have any tips for investors that are just getting started with ETFs? What are the kind of things that they should look for?
Yeah, of course. So like we mentioned multiple times earlier, but I think it's still the most important tip is to always look under the bonnet.
Mm,
Don't just go by the name of the ETF. So that sometimes that can be very misleading. Always check out and make sure you understand the index methodology. So that tells you how the index is constructed and how the names go in and out of the fund, and to check the underlying holdings to make sure that it aligns with what you're expecting from the fund.
Brilliant.
And for those that are
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I'm just saying, for those that are usually just starting out, just remember that it's okay to change your mind. So you're not stuck with the one ETF that you bought from day one. So it's okay, just as long as you get started, to get the process going, get more confident in your skills, and as long as you keep your research up, as your knowledge develops, so would your investing skills as well. And in terms of actually buying or trading the ETFs, some tips that I would give is to avoid trading directly after the market open or directly before the market close, because that's usually when the market's the most volatile. And the other tip is, going off the back of that, is to use a limit order. So you don't want to just go on market. A market order is just go, okay, let me just get done at whatever price it is now. I don't really care. So while a limit order, you're saying, okay, the max, for example, that I will pay to buy an ETF is $1.65, or the minimum that I'm willing to sell is $1.65, so that you won't get any surprises there.
That's some really good tips and stuff there. And you have some of these as well, like on your page, right? Like on Instagram, like you've got some series of this kind of stuff. So I only just learnt myself how to do the highlights maybe a month ago, how to put those highlights of stories up there. I wasn't even doing stories. I'm like, what's the point of stories? But then I realized that from those short, sharp things that are up there, and whether lessons or videos or whatever it is, or that you can put them into highlights. So you've got a few of those on there. So, what are some of the ones that you've got on your page, like for lessons? Is there like a highlights area for lessons or something?
No, I haven't, but I do have a guide. But I don't think many people use that function in Instagram. It's a guide where I kind of collate all my posts. So I've got a guide which is before starting investing, so to make sure you go through and understand your finances, so not just necessarily go straight into investing, because that may not be suitable for everyone right there and now. To make sure you have your budget, your debt, everything under control, and that you're only going to invest what you can afford to invest. So it might sound counterintuitive from my end, being an ETF portfolio manager, but sometimes I tell people, it may not just be for you right now. So it's okay for you to kind of hold off investing for a while you get everything else sorted.
Yeah, that's really hard with like FOMO and stuff out there.
For sure.
We see so much, the markets are roaring and doing so well, and so-and-so's made so much, but it is a really personal kind of journey. So I think it's amazing that you are sharing that kind of stuff and being a voice of reason, because there's a sea of, good and bad information out there. So I really thank you for doing that. I've got friends that I'm pointing to your direction because you have such good information. So we'll continue to do that. But look, that pretty much wraps up this interview. So if people are interested, from a professional standpoint, are you on LinkedIn for people to follow? Can they, see you there?
You can find me on LinkedIn under Jessica Leung.
Okay. And for so Instagram and TikTok, people can find you there. And what's the handle?
Yeah, so you can find me on my socials. That's where I educate about financial literacy and give ETF and investing tips in a simple to understand manner. My handle on Instagram and TikTok is @TheLeungWay. So TheLeungWay.
Perfect. So we'll include that in the show notes if people, just jump to that. But hopefully we see more of the stuff that you're providing, and we'll just both continue our journeys. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. That's a wrap up of episode 10. If you asked me many weeks ago if I would have thought that we would get to 10 episodes of speaking to some amazing people in the ETF markets, people that work in different parts of it that all need to come together to be able to provide you guys with the great product of the ETF. So I don't think that I couldn't have imagined all of this kind of happening. So It has been an amazing journey, and we are so excited to bring you more amazing content at the ETF Tracker Show. If you didn't already know, there's actually a website, www.etftracker.com.au. So ETF and Tracker, all one word. You can Google it, or you can go directly to the site. And we've got quite a few resources there. There's also the apps, which is where all of this started from. So please do follow us on our socials. We're on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify even. There's a little bit on TikTok. We're trying to do more with Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn as well as ETF Tracker. You can follow me at Mark Montfort. And yeah, just see if there's anything there that interests you, whether it's the apps or it's the other resources. Hope you have a great day. This has been an awesome episode, and we'll see you soon.